I see. Slight apologize for the delay that has happened. Okay, I see Pranav, Pooja, Kunal, Priya, Sandra, Tushar, Zarna, Neha, Dr. VLN, Rahul Raj, Tushar, Vishal. Thank you so much for joining us today. So very good afternoon to one and all present here today. The focus of leadership and the dynamics that make a sound leadership drives our way to day interactions in a continuous revolving world of business. Sound leadership is the core of every organization and solving its problems. Understanding leadership, its purpose and dynamics enables executives to solve problems and maintain a competitive edge in a continuously changing business environment. In order to address the strategic implications that organizations' behaviors have on leaderships, let's hear from our expert what leadership styles have helped them achieve success. HRAI welcomes you all to the session on connecting the dots, the sound of leadership. To know more about HRAI and its event, I would request all our participants to kindly follow the webinar guidelines. It would be great to have all our participants' feedback. We'll be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all our participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. I now take the privilege to introduce our esteemed panel members for today's session. Dr. Sheetal Badshah, founder and CEO, Growth Catalyst. Dr. Sheetal is a leadership coach. He is an engineer by chance, management graduate by experiment, and PhD holder by choice, under the guidance of Dr. D.M. Prestonji, retired professor, IIM Ahmedabad. He went on to obtain certification as a leadership coach from IIM Bangalore. With an experience of more than a decade in leadership, he works for 3 segments: SME ranging below 50 crores, family business between 50 to 500 crores, and MNCs above 500 crores of annual turnover. He has worked with companies like L&T, Ford Motors, Jubilant Life Science, Kalpataru Power Transmission, Jindal Saw, Gujarat Gas, Astral Pipes, Syntex, Veramora, to name a few. Works as a leadership coach to senior management executives to help them be better leaders so they can lead their organization successfully. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Our next panel member, Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon, Chief Operating Officer, Right to Rise. Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon is an international acclaimed speaker, mentor, who has been on various conferences and summits representing India on gender equality, women and child rights, and inclusiveness. She holds a double degree in IT and law. She is the founder of Right to Rise and RKT Foundation, which is catering to training, compliance, and auditing of various organizations. She is an alumni of EDX, Harvard in Women and Child Rights, as also Human Rights. She has been felicitated as Thrive Global 100 Mentors, mentor of Chair Black Foundation, and also UN Rex Karmavir Global Fellowship Awardee 2019-2020. Raina has represented India at World Women Summit 2020 and is also a global ambassador for Sustainable SDG 5 UN goals for gender equality, inclusiveness, and UN Chartered Human Rights. She is well known as a limitless enabler and global inclusion innovator with 23 years of experience to her credit. You can follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Our next speaker, Mr. Patrick Benson, Director, Leaders of Tomorrow Institute. He is a keynote speaker, a specialist in the workspace, organization psychology, as well as HR consulting. He has consultation rights at the United Nations and expert at the European Commission, member of the council at Forbes Coach Council, Entrepreneur Magazine, and Harvard Business Review. He is specialized in work-related issues and leadership, notably in leadership and management development, people and culture, recruitment, profiling, and HR training, employee evaluation, workplace ergonomics, working condition, psychology, health analysis, and prevention, job analysis, job satisfaction and reward programs, team effectiveness, and work motivation. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Now I'll introduce a panel cum moderator for today's session. Lieutenant Commander Nitika Rai, Senior Technology Consultant. Lieutenant Commander Nitika Rai is an experienced naval officer who served the Indian Navy for 11 years. During her illustrious career, she has handled various roles encompassing logistics and SCM, HR management, accounting and procurement, and project management. She has been instrumental in upkeeping of various departmental functions. She has been a trusted advisor to HSOD for delivering operational excellence. She did her master's in business administration in HR and marketing and postgraduate diploma in international logistics and SCM, and specialized in global SCM from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. She has been devoted to her professional career, and she is now working with EY as a senior technology consultant since July 21. She loves reading, writing, running, and delivering motivational talks. You can follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Without taking much time, I hand over the platform to Lieutenant Nitika. Over to you, Nitika.
All right. All right. A very good afternoon to all. And it's lovely to see, leaders all around. Patrick, Rana, yet to meet Dr. Sheetal out here. So let's start our conversation. The topic is very new to me. I've heard of sound leadership, the sound of leadership. I mean, I was just Googling it out. So it came out that a sound of leadership is a conversation. So leadership is a kind of a conversation. While I was going through the article on HBR, which says a leader should know what, when, why of the situation. So let's talk about it in more detail with Rana and Patrick. I'll start with Rana. So Rana, I just wanted to know what's the most difficult part of the leadership, which you have, in your illustrious career you have been through. If you can just give us an example, would love to know that. Rana, over to you. Rana, if you could please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to everybody at HRAI. Thank you very much, Peterson, Faisal, and the entire team for having us here. And a big gratitude to you, Lieutenant Commander Nitika, for this beautiful question. So I think when you're a leader, everything seems to be difficult because a leader, I think, always have a lone journey. Okay, as a leader, there'll be many stands where you have to take, many decisions that you have to make. And the most difficult decision is when you have people challenging every question, every stance at where you are, and also you making decisions when you have to let go of people who you really want. Also with pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, we getting into the newer phase, I think there's a lot of pressure that sets in with unexpected movements all the time. Okay, so as we are traversing with bringing in new talent, with talent acquisition, getting newer folks to be in your system, moving from the physical to the technology driven, and now coming back to again being physical, because we, as at least in the Asian community that we see a lot of us wanting to come back and get back to the normal way of working, because we are connected with the emotions and relationships also. It's not that we are only technology bound or we grow only through hybrid systems always. Again, another challenge that most leaders find is building relationships, and they always think that results are directly proportional to the number of clients that we get. And results are not actually proportional to number of clients or the amount of growth, but only with the nurturing of the growth that you make with yourself and the growth that you want to make with your team. So the team growth comes in only when you are working on production. That can be production of your knowledge, production of seeking permission every time to get views by brainstorming with the people, and then putting that into implementation. So there can be challenges with having different kinds of people working with you, you understanding them, bringing the view sets and the perspectives together, and then driving it to your visions and values to make it happen. So these are some of the things that I can actually come across, putting out the points with regards to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prerna, and you have really summed up really well, because it's very difficult for a leader to let go those who a leader doesn't want to. You know, this is a different kind of retention. And Dr. Sheetal, good to have you back. A very good afternoon to you. Doctor, if you could just unmute yourself.
Thank you. My apology for joining little late. Thank you.
No
Happy to
problem.
be with
No
all of
problem.
you.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. Pleasure is all mine. So shall we start, Dr. Sheetal, if you're comfortable? We'll start with the questions.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So first question, which goes to you, is how can a leader have a effective communication to his employees or her employees, so that, you know, the employees achieve the desired goal of the organization?
Wonderful question to begin with, and I would refer to our ancient literature. Let me give an example of Mahabharata. If there would have been an effective communication between Duryodhana and his father, probably we would not have Mahabharata.
All right. I believe there's a disconnect.
From the front.
Yeah, all right.
Hello.
All right. Doctor, if you
Am I there with you?
Yes, we could hear us. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I was mentioning that not only a leader needs to communicate effectively, but a leader needs to ensure that all the team members are aligned in respect to the overall vision of the organization. So probably again contextualize my answer with Mahabharata. What Dhritarashtra failed probably to infuse the culture and value systems among the team members, and couldn't make it effectively to all the team members. That's how I would respond to your question.
Oh, well, great. You know, great to get a recap of Mahabharata in place over here. Thank you, Dr. Sheetal. And over to you, Patrick. So my question to you is that how influencing and inspiring a leader can be? Up to what extent?
Well, thank you. And to follow what Dr. Sheetal just said and Reina also mentioned, I think there's two kind of inspirational. I think the best one would be the charismatic one. So if you're charismatic, people will be inspired by you. Those who have less charisma trying to impose usually by force, the coercive way. This is not obviously the required one, but if you're charismatic, he has some perks, some really positive way, and it can sometimes be sort of negative. Let me explain. So a charismatic person would be someone that inspired, that full of energy, positive energy, and sets the goal very high for his team and for himself. And sometimes this is the feedback, sometimes so high that the team cannot follow. So it's good to be charismatic, it's to be bring people in and to always encourage, to coach them, to make sure they are on board and go along with what you do. But if you go too high or set the bar too high, then you will create burnout, you create disappointment, and people don't follow, they think they're not good enough, and then you demotivate them. So there's always a line where I'm pushing you to, it's like a coach pushing you to be motivated, but if the bar is too high, you then demotivates the people. But charisma is actually in all leader what is needed. So everyone can learn to be a leader. The charisma is not something you can learn, it's something you have naturally. You can develop more charisma, it's possible. But there's a numerous, especially in my country, in Canada, a bunch of non-charismatic leaders. They're nice, they do the job, but the charisma is not there. So the population has a hard time to follow. Will be my first answer.
All right, great, Patrick, and good to know that charismatic yet not cohesive, and and also as you mentioned that the charismatic to an extent that the goal should be such which is achievable, right? And the short-term goals as well as the long-term goals. Nicely summed up, Patrick. I'll come to you, Rana. Over to you to the next question. What are the attributes and values according to you a ideal leadership possess? Rana, kindly unmute, please.
For that, Nitika, I'm sorry, I'm just getting all the calls only today.
No problem.
Okay.
It's fine.
So when it comes to values, I think, see, every person carries very different values. So I would not be the appropriate right person to say, hey, you should be having these values as a leader. Okay. Because values is something that is driven not only by the environment and the society, but it first comes down from your belief systems, your experiences, from your own lifestyle or your own family. So I would always say that every family would give the right values to their child. And as a leader, you would always want to drive these values to people, whoever are connected with you, because we say it's always about like-minded value people in your organization that drive you towards your goal and also to a long-term vision. So if I have to say what are my value systems, I can say respect, I can say dignity, I can say rights, I can say justice, I can say transparency, and also that we are committed to or dedicated to completing things with complete satisfaction when it comes to a customer or the vendor or the person that you are serving. It could be anybody and everybody down the plate, whether it's an individual, an organization, or an institution. But when you are coming to this area of what are the attributes, I'm sure I remember TEER, or I will say TEET. I call it the teeth therapy or the teeth attribute. One is managing time. If you know how to manage time, you'll be more productive. So managing time, managing emotions, because if you're unable to manage emotions, sometimes we flow into taking the wrong decisions or the wrong negotiations or the wrong communication. And I think everything is connected via, okay, you don't develop relationships, you don't get business. To develop that, you need to be controlling your emotions as well. So the second one is emotions. The third one is managing energy levels. I can always get up in the morning and say, hey, I got such a big list of things to do. Everybody has a to-do list. Everybody has a good planner. Everybody has good scheduling. Everybody has good planning. But as good leaders, you must also put that into action. I can sit down the whole day and not do anything about it if my energy levels are not high. And that is why we say something in the morning, whether it's a yoga, whether it's a meditation, whether it is sound healing, whether it is forgiveness prayer, whether it is Zumba, salsa, or any kind of activity, including a fitness gym or an emotional gym that you do to raise your energy levels. Okay, including jumping, hopping, skipping, whatever you feel, or running, that gives you energy high. And the finest one, or the TEE, I finished, the finest one is focus on the right things. Okay, so you can keep it like a teeth therapy, or you can call it a tear therapy, because that is what would drive you to become a leader and have your value systems in place for your organization and the people who follow you. So whether they follow you as a leader or they follow you as an organizational specialist, I'm sure they would also resonate with whatever I have shared. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rana. So after listening to your answer, I could make out that it's the soft skill which is very important. All right.
Absolutely. So I somehow, after coming out of the trainings, for a while, I have forgotten what these soft skills and hard skills mean. All I know is it's a skill. Okay,
That's
we know
just-
attitudes, we know skills, we know competency, and we know knowledge. So whether you call it a hard skill or a soft skill today, these are skills that are not seen. So that's why they've been called.
soft. Yeah.
And you can call them values, you can call them ethics, you can call them something that is imbibed by your family. You can give them different, but you have spot on, Lieutenant Commander, because these are some things which are not just words, but beyond words that need to be put into your life to develop a purpose. And for a leader, the purpose is the first thing that drives it.
Perfectly brought out, Rena, and a very, very, very energetic answer and deep answer which she has given. We need to look into ourselves before questioning others, and we need to just drive our skills, whether it's hard skill or there are all synonyms which, as Rena mentioned, it can be hard skill, soft skill. Okay, coming back. Thank you, Rena. I'll just come back to Dr. Sheetal. Doctor, the question to you is how a leader can help finding balance between going with the flow and giving himself a larger voice.
So I'm a student of leadership, and I often try to go back to our ancient literature. This time, I would like to quote an example of Eklavya, a functional expert. But yesterday we had a Guru Purnima, and it reflects upon our gratitude towards Guru. Now, when his Guru asked the thumb, he knew that if he gives thumb, probably he will not have any more functional expertise, but the going with the larger aspects of demonstrating his love and respect for the guru. In fact, he was a self-taught candidate. He didn't. These days we talk about offline and online. That online was there since in those days. That he never met his guru, but then just putting a murti in front of him, he learned an art of archery. So a larger voice will actually put a leader from the functional value to the larger organizational value. You look at any example of big companies, whether it is Apple or you can take any example which the leader moves away from the product to the moves to the larger purpose of serving the customers, and that comes from the inner voice. We can have a choice of looking at the balance sheet, we can have a choice of looking at the profitability, but we can have a larger understanding of serving the benefits to the customers. So it's very, very important for any leader to demonstrate, and that probably inspires team members to venture out in probably uncharted area as well.
Yeah, very, very nicely brought on, Dr. Sheetal. Touching the areas which have not been touched. All right, and especially giving Dr. Sheetal giving us such a good example, of Eklavya here in this forum. Nicely brought out. I'll come to Patrick. Patrick, I just wanted to know what leadership style do you focus on apart from being charismatic?
Charisma is not a style, it's just whether you have it or not. I think I have identified about 8 leadership style, and it goes with the distance to power. So on the top, you have a great distance between the leadership and the people he's working with. That's the cohesive power. So basically, it's used force to make to get results. And then as we're going down, you get a persuasive style where you don't use force as such, but you're trying to persuade them is the right thing to do without asking what they wish to do. The parental style is even closer and closer, so it's going softer and softer, as you can imagine. The parental style is to explain the children, explain the employee what we're going to do without asking if they agree or not. And then you come to the consultative one, where you might ask what they think, you might use that or not. The participative, definitely going to take their intakes. Collaborative, definitely even more collaboration with the manager and the employee. And then come the last two, the transformation style and the coaching style. This is where I will place myself. This is where we're going from a vertical organization to a horizontal organization. Exactly, where basically the manager become part of the team and the team become part of the management.
All right.
So because good news can come, or good idea could come from anybody. As long as you deserve the t-shirt of the team, then you're part of the team. Doesn't matter what you employ for. And as part of the team, you have an input to say, this is my style.
Yeah, good to know that, Patrick, in a way you're following the shared leadership, wherein the manager becomes a part of the team and the team becomes a part of the manager.
I've seen leaders that are afraid to lose their power, let's say, if they include everybody on the same level, and there's no difference between the employee and the manager. There will always be a difference because the charisma will be there, because the inspiration is there. And we're not questioning the authority, we're questioning, but by being involved, by giving a sense of why we're here together in a team. And then if the idea comes from a lot of people, then the integration of the team will be, and the trust also will be developed faster.
Great, Patrick. Great. Good to have, from distance to power. Good to have that kind of a graph. Rana, over to you. The question seems to be a long question. How does psychology teaches that the leaders develop leadership skills which involve slow, steady process of observation, trial and error, interpersonal communication, and experience. So how does psychology have a role to play in this?
Okay, so quite a deep question. Let's take this one bit at a time. I think your question was, how does psychology help? Okay, I'm not a psychologist. Let me come to that point first, because there might be very many people who are great experts here in the field of psychology. Though I've studied a little bit about people and people management, and I may not say I'm the best leader of the world, because let's understand that leadership is not like a one thing where you learn it and that's done. Leadership is an evolving process. And in the evolving process, you're trying to get to understand every person that comes to you. How are they communicating? What are they trying to say? Every time that they say, are they giving out? Are they a generous giver? Are they an excellent receiver? Are they listening to you? And many of these things, whether it is being mindful, being listenable, being resilient, are traits of psychology. Because psychology says that it connects the body with the mind with the communication, and the communication goes right with understanding what is that you're trying to provide to the person in front of you. Okay, you're trying to be able to reciprocate and give the rights of a people to the relationship that you're drawing, and that itself produces results and in due respect for each and every person who's around you. So psychology and its process is of course going to be slow. It's not that you understand a person overnight. You need to be with them, get to understand their background, their processes, their systems, their position, and then probably work on their business, which comes last. The second part of your question was quite long, so I'll just go back to the question. I think you said it's a slow, steady process of observation, trial and error. Like I said, it's like a cooking process. Today you might make dal and curry in one way, but I'm sure every time you make dal and curry, the process is the same, but a little pinch of salt here, a little pinch of chili there will obviously change the entire taste of whatever you cook. Same way, with every team member that comes into your team, with every person that walks into your office, you will obviously follow the same process of inception, same value system, same vision, but their goal and your goal cannot be aligned till you don't understand what is a person there for, and is he aligned to what you want as the dream of your life to drive your organization. Again, interpersonal connection only comes when you have the experience to take the leadership with different traits, different values, and different styles of leadership, where the different areas that we covered, one of them that Patrick said was charisma, another one that Mr. Dr. Shittal has said through mythology of Dronacharya and Eklavya is you need to also keep focus on what is that you want. Okay, I'm sure they had a very clear vision and a real clear goal and a real focus on what was their goal, and they don't want anything else other than that goal. And their leaders have also guided them for the same. They've not like kept them that you have 3 processes, now follow one. Okay. So I think our mythology teaches us a lot of things. We need to go back again, look at only 3 traits. How is a leader influencing others? How is a leader facilitating growth? How is a leader bringing in respect and creating that change? Because that itself is going to bring you all the traits of psychology. And I'm sure there's much more, because like I said, psychology is again another field of science between mind, body, and how you communicate. Even when we sit as a leader, I think we communicate a lot about the way we stand, the way we sit, the way we talk, the way we carry ourselves. And everybody looks at you and wants to pursue some of the traits that you carry. And that is why you're looked up as a leader. So even that is a psychology of how and why is the person doing certain things, and I want to copy. So it's a lot of thought process. I'm sure we all have learned it the same way. So coming down to the ground rules, it's not like we are all turned leaders or we are born leaders. That's clearly a myth when somebody tells you, yes, I'm a born leader. We are born leaders because we all have something good and something amazing to learn from. But leadership is something that we keep learning every day from every person. A little here, a little there, but what and why and how, that's a process. Thank you so much.
Great, Rana. I mean, very beautifully summed up. Though the question was very, very long, but then you mentioned the focus, then you mentioned that, understanding the people, understanding the people's family, employees' family at the same time. You mentioned that, the topic is very vast. Psychology has a different role to play. It's mind, body, soul. I mean, she actually brought up it really well. Thank you, Rana. And I'll come back to Dr. Sheetal. Doctor, question for you is empathetic leadership the best type of a leadership as far as the today's employees is concerned? They would like to be appreciated. They would like to be respected. So we need to be empathetic. A leader has to be empathetic. So how you want to what's your say in it?
So I am not sure whether empathetic leadership is the best style of leadership or not, because often we say that there's something called situational leadership. But I would like to give one example which will help our audience to learn what is empathetic leadership. Again, going back to another epic literature, Ramayana, empathy made Rama different than Ravana. Both were leaders, both were king. But if you look at the way they lead their own fraternity, Lanka was much more prosperous than what is right now under the leadership of Ravana. We used to say that Lanka Sone ki Nagari. So prosperity was there. But if you somebody would have taken happiness index, probably people from the Rama's kingdom would have scored higher than in under the leadership of Ravana. So empathy, of course, that makes one leader different than the next one, where the team members look upon to they get connected from, because as a human being we are very emotional, and empathy extends above our functional responsibility. uh, I gave, in previous conversation, I gave an example of Steve Jobs of Apple. But if you look at, there have been quoted example where he used to fire people on the straight conversation. So that was dark side of Steve Jobs. So leadership is all about having good and dark, both the side. Empathetical approach helps people to move from one tangent to the next one.
Thank you, Dr. Sheetal. The dark side is actually very important. At the same time, when he gave an example of Rama, which we all look at the darker side, and Ram, and he clearly brought out that a leader had to be empathetic to know the good and the bad side of the employees in the organization. And thank you, Dr. Sheetal. Patrick, over to you. How is the servant leadership style different from the traditional one? So
I would like to not to compete with Dr. Schittel because he has so much experience and knowledge of the scripture. I don't have that knowledge, unfortunately. So my reference would be very, very different. It would be from the US Army recently in the early 90s. There was an incident aboard a nuclear submarine. There was two leadership were completely opposite. And when the captain of that submarine saw that the moral of the troop was low, he said to the second in commander, he said that the crew seems to be needing a kick in the butt. And the other one says, or a tap in the shoulder. So both could work, So a servant would be the second, the second commander, where he says, yes, we have a mission to accomplish. I understand that we have a goal to sell. We have to sell this military or a company, but then there's two ways to motivate. And so I for myself believe in the servant way, without keeping the eyes on the road, but still make sure that in your bus, there's no chaos behind you if you're driving the bus. Because then how can you reach destination if at the back, the troop is already all over the place? You might, when the conflict inside a team is so big that you cannot steer the company anymore, then you're wasting time doing that. So it's very important to make sure that they want. Furthermore, what I mean by to be for me, to be a servant leadership is to make sure that every member of the team bring their best. And for that is to ask what they want in life. Maybe they want to work with you for a few years because they value your company, they value your brand. And they also think that it would be good for their resume for what's coming next in their life. Ignoring what their life will be, ignoring that they're not going to work for you, not in this time anymore. They're not going to stay with you for a lifetime. So by encouraging to do what also they want after they leave the company, not only they will you will be inspired by you, and they will always remember you, always keep. You never know, like it has been some case where big company have lost some technician or engineer, and those engineers start a company bigger than the mothership that the company they started. Now, if they have a good relationship, they could carry on working together. If they have a bad relationship, if they were kicked out of the first company, then they might be competitors, which don't serve them well. So always keeping a good, and so by asking the question to people in a humanistic approach, what they want to do in their life, what they want to achieve, not only what they're doing here in your team right now, but what they're going is and understanding that and trying to serve the best. Okay, you want to be that later on? Well, within my team, why don't you do that? It will serve you well later on in your path of career. That's what I would recommend everyone to do, knowing your people well and know where they want to go.
Oh, great, Patrick. You gave a very good example. So where, I've served in Navy. So when as an officer, we used to call sailors for muster in the morning. So if I am new to my unit, then I used to talk to my sailors who are very new to me, even I'm new to them. So I used to ask them, what are your problems? Or on the very first day, I want each and everybody used to say, ma'am, I don't have any problem. So I know you have to get one, whether it's personal, whether it's professional. So I'll just work on it. And then you have to lead by example. I cannot tell my sailor to do 10 push-ups until I do it. All right. And he won't do it. And he will say 5 and he say, okay, all right. I have to go for a run 5 kilometers with them to make them understand that, you are a leader and you're leading by example. So very, very beautifully brought out, Peter. Patrick, thank you for the answer. I'll come to you, Rana. Rana, to you, the last question, which says, can you tell me a time when you demonstrated a leadership skill?
Okay, so I think many a times we think we've demonstrated leadership. A very small example that I want to give about not exhibiting leadership where you feel that you have is, for example, I conducted this session a few days back for a group of CEOs of, say, 25 CEOs of companies. The idea
Great.
was to actually have mentorship towards getting them to be leaders and why they have not been picked up as leaders. Okay. Sometimes even the CEOs of companies don't exhibit the kind of skills or the kind of competency in their physical mode, even though they have it internally. Okay. Only when they start talking about business, their team or their entire clientele feels that they are on the CEO position. So they had these issues of why am I not being looked as a CEO? So we just had a casual networking event for them to loosen up. And I realized that when they were among this loose community of freeing up themselves, they were absolutely themselves. And they were very happy that, I got them together and they were in this event and they were moving about, did some activities, they were asked to do certain things, and they did it really well. So by the end of the event, they were all very grateful that we completed this event, and there was great learnings, great value, great bonding, and finally a lot of results. They had a lot of collaborations among themselves. Okay. The intent was not only results or outcome, the result was much higher. But what I'm trying to say is they all looked up to me as a leader, and they said the initiative was very good. I'm just saying the initiative was not exactly for the leader. It was beyond that. So that's where we say having clarity, discipline, consistency, and a leader doesn't have to be always talking and doing the first bit, that is shouting out to say, I am a leader. Okay. You don't have to always say, I'm a leader to be known as a leader. You can always be somebody who's at the back end and let the work communicate. The second thing is, when you expect that leadership is exhibited, many a times we need to also understand that. So this is one experience that I had during post-pandemic. I think we had some people leaving and going back to their hometowns. So we had 2 or 3 positions vacant. So when we wanted to get new people in our concern, it was always about checking who is competent enough for that skill, and the best person should be gotten. Okay. And I said, I don't want the best person who's only good at skills, but I want somebody who's more motivated, because you can teach a person and push them to do much higher when they are motivated, even if they are not highly skilled. But if you get a skilled person and he's demotivated, it's difficult for them to grow. Okay. And today we have amazing leaders who are with us, and we look up to them and they look up to us, and together an organization grows to the next level. That is what I feel is leadership to me. So yes, motivate others, develop self-interest, get the relationships right, and I'm sure your pinnacle will be high with you soon. Thank you so much.
Great, great, Lena. She actually has talked practically. All right. And in so many words, Lena says that you need to walk the talk. All right. It's not like you're talking. The leaders have to walk upon it. Whatever you're saying, you need to perform. You can't just shout out that I'm a leader. It's your actions which tell people that, yes, you're a leader. And at the same time, the seminar, the talk which she took of some 20, 30 CEOs, who looked up to her, and which she was mentioning that it was beyond the leadership. Hats off, Rena. Kudos to you and your team. Thank you for the answer. I'll just now hop on to Dr. Sheetal. Sheetal, your question: why is servant leadership more important than ever? Or do you think it's important? This, do you get the question, Dr. Sheetal? You kindly unmute. Kindly unmute. Kindly unmute yourself, please.
I think it's not happening at his end. Maybe you can try doing it from your end.
I'll just try.
Thank you. I was not able to unmute myself. Thank you, someone helped me to do so. So let me give you example of Devavrata this time. You know who is Devavrata? Devavrata was a son to Ganga, who went on to become Bhisma. He's a classical example of servant leadership. Uh, he renounced everything for the benefit of Hastinapur. Uh, he didn't
Okay.
marry just to ensure that he can fulfill his father's dream. Later on, at the time of Mahabharata, he took a side of Kaurava. So when somebody
Mhm.
asked him, "Why are you taking a side of Kaurava?" He said that no,
Mhm.
I am not. I don't represent Kaurava, but I represent
Mhm.
Hastinapur. So that is a classical example of servant leadership where you need to put yourself from your profile, from your functional role, from a department to the organization at large. Let me add by quoting one prime example of one of the leading businessmen from Gujarat. He took a huge loan for his business. So somebody asked him, "Isn't it too risky? Don't you think that it's too much of risk to raise such loan?" He said that
Mhm.
by doing my business, by scaling up my business, I am serving my customers, I am serving my employees, and I'm serving my nation at large. So servant leadership takes you, lifts you from the very minimal cost to the larger purpose of doing the business.
Mhm. All right, all right. So, after hearing from Dr. Sheetal, I'll be the fan of Epic, Very, very good examples and very decent examples. Yeah. So maybe I'll take a short now. So there are short books coming up for Ramayana and Mahabharata. I'll just finish them off, start reading. Thank you so much, Dr. Sheetal.
We'll be happy to share few material to you. We'll do that, Nirpul. Thank you.
Pleasure is all mine, Dr. Sheetal. Patrick, the question last goes to you. Peter, do we have time? All right, all right. All right, Patrick. The
I'll be
question
quick.
says,
I'll be quick.
all right, all right. The question says, is there is a correlation that leaders are lacking a moral compass to those that tend to be ruthless business owners, or they tend to have a better corporate results than the nice leaders? You got the question? Shall I repeat again? Is there a
Yeah, no,
correlation that leaders lack? You got it?
yep.
You got
So
it?
basically,
Okay,
in other words, if you're a ruthless leader, do you have more results than if you're a nice
exactly.
leader?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you do in the short term. If you're ruthless, you can impose by force thing. People don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their income, and so they will do that. Same thing if I meet someone in the street and asking to help me with 1,000 rupee, I could point a gun at his forehead, and he don't want to die for 1,000 rupees. So I will get the result immediately. Or it also could be a friend, but that friendship and trust will have to develop over time. So this is
Over time.
so in short time, yes, the result is immediate because there's a threat. Now, in the long
Mhm.
run, however, no one wants to live in threat, whether it's at home, whether it's at work. And so in the long run, I recommend that the trust has been developed, and that takes time. But then again, when you come back to your friends, a good friend, and ask for the same kind of money, you will get the same result immediately. And then you can ask over and time again, where by threat, he might want to avoid you next time. So in the long run, it works better. There's something that we don't talk about. We start talking more and more in the workplace in order to reach the trust and thing. It's to include everybody. It's very common sense, or sorry, common. What can I say? Not sense. What can I say? The term of diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I've seen that
Yeah.
everywhere on LinkedIn at the moment, because it tends also to have like a team more diverse in nationality and in mentality, and also in difference of generation. So multi-generation, even on the same culture, tend to have a different vision. the young people of India today, and I know quite a few because I'm looking after some students that are studying in Europe. Medicine, and so I'm with the group, and they're very young and they're future doctors. Some will come back to India, some will stay in Europe, we'll see. And so the mentality are quite away from the parents, they're quite different from them. So it's interesting to hear their vision according to where the parents' vision, just one generation ago, how they want to do. So, yeah, but diversity, to finish with that as a conclusion, diversity, what is diversity is to being invited to the party. Inclusion is to be asked to dance with us, but belonging, when you really feel part of the team, is dancing when no one is watching. It's
No
dancing
one.
like if no one is watching.
Perfect.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's
Perfect. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Very, very nicely summed it up, Patrick. All right. And belonging is, I mean, exactly. You need to do things when nobody's watching, and then people are talking good about you.
You can be yourself then. Yes.
Yeah, you can be yourself. Beautifully brought out. And thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Rena. Thank you, Dr. Sheetal. And good to have you all over here. Beautifully answered question. Thank you, Peter. Peter, over to you. Thank you, HRAI.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nitika, for driving us through this insightful discussion where different styles of leadership were explored, right from servant leadership, transformational to delegative leadership. Beautifully done. Before we go in for taking up our participants' questions, we move into the Q&A session. We'll be running a poll to capture our participants' feedback. I would request all our participants to kindly share your feedback on today's session.
There was a few questions raised hand by Neha.
Yes, yes. We even have Dr. VLN who has shared questions.
Some kid also wanted to ask a question, is it?
Yeah, so we have a question that has come up from Dr. VLN, as well as we have Manya who has put up for us. So over to you, Nitika, to pick them up.
All right. Just sit like that. Just see and the questions. Just give me a second. Yeah. All right. So Neha is asking. All right, I'll just go through. I could see Dr. Galen question. He's saying that our leaders of today, post-COVID, that is post-work from home 2022, our leaders of today struggling more with crisis, stroke firefighting than in past. Our leaders ready to allow a bunch of old workhorses go with their choices and welcome new set of people for short tenures, but not for long-term commitment with organization. This is the question of Dr. VLN. Rana, Patrick, Dr. Sheetal, anyone of you? Feel free to answer, please.
Okay, so I'll just share my views.
Sure.
See, I think we sometimes over-exaggerate things with pandemic, pre-pandemic, and post-pandemic. Okay. I think we were the same before and after. It's just that we were very, very inhibited when we are to go with a lot more in technology. I think pandemic just enabled us to use technology more and connect with people across the globe. Somewhere I just feel that if people have not taken that advantage, then probably, yes, they would be still struggling. But this pandemic, now that things have opened up, it's much faster. Because now people have got into that loop of probably connecting so much across and so fast on technology that they might have things very complacent when it happens in the physical mode. And for people to come back to their setups, it's going to take a while. So even organizations are trying at their best to get back things to place as per normal. But we all know that it's not going to be normal anymore. Okay. It means that we have progressed faster. So we know much higher than what we knew. And everybody who's there today, even somebody who's a peon knows how to use technology more, what he didn't know earlier. because that was not the need at that time. Now it is the need because that was the only way he could connect to his family. That was the only way he could connect back to his kids who are across maybe in some other city. So all that we need to see now is keeping in mind the resources that we have. If I am young, if I'm mid-level, if I'm old, what is that I can do to equip myself to get much more knowledgeable in certain areas? Can I use this to equip myself? Can I use maybe get a degree on the IITs, or maybe get more knowledge, or start working on different areas, or start developing programs that are not there, a little out of way, which are not the normal. I can't expect me to go back and start doing a leadership session now when there are many more leaders who are doing leadership. But if you narrow down to what else can you do in leadership, then probably that creates another avenue for you to break through.
Breakthrough.
Okay.
Exactly.
Same way with technology, a lot of people don't like using Mural or Miro or Padlet or, many other Kahoot and many other things because they find it very challenging. If you can't use them, then create something which you can use. Now, to create something new, you have to think about ideas, or you have to seek people's opinion or suggestion or brainstorm. If you're not going to do that, then probably you're just sitting with yourself and breaking and racking brains. And sitting with yourself is not leading you anywhere, right? The least you can do is probably sit down at a HRAI session and listen to a lot of people, because everybody is going to give you some idea. So I think it's a great platform. Basically, why I brought it up was it's a great platform basically for a lot of people to get to hear people view sets. I'm not saying experts are the people always, but sometimes even questions trigger ideas.
Exactly.
Okay? So it's not about who, it's about how and where.
I would like to add to what Raina mentioned about. Probably Darwin knew more about leadership than Warren Barnes or Bernard Bass. Darwin said that the species which not the strength they have, but those species were adapting change will survive more than the animal else. So leadership is the same kind of example. The adaptability, it takes long to change. Uh, uh, we have seen this pandemic. We call it endemic. We try to call it pandemic, but then we are back to square zero. And since you and me, we are talking to each other today, that means we have survived. We have survived that phase, and we are what we were. But when the contextualization goes about the organizational application, those organizations will do well in irrespective of the situation, who can understand what's there on the ground for them. And if they get the right signals, respond to the change well ahead of time, they are better placed than their competitors.
Great, great.
Well said.
Well said. Yeah, Dr. Peter and Rana, absolutely great. So I would request Neha wants to ask a question. Peter, we couldn't see the question on the chat. So
I believe she would want to ask it directly. Neha, is it that you would want to ask the question directly? Yes, we can take another question. So if you would want to either post it in the chat or you would want to speak out. Shyam, can we have her unmuted?
Yes. She would be able to do now.
Neha, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Yes, Neha.
Yeah, it was great listening to all the three experts. Thank you so much. I have a question for Raina ma'am. Any three of them can definitely answer. Well, servant leadership is something I'm looking forward. I want to know that how pivotal is it in today's era? And do you think like we can, I have also heard that it is being used as a, as a wrong term, or it is being used very wrongly in many ways. So do you think that servant leadership has some importance in today's, kind of a environment we are working with, and how much impactful it will be for any organizations to achieve their goals?
Thank you, Neha. I also want Patrick and Dr. Shittal to add there. So first of all, tell me, what is your understanding of servant leadership?
Well, there are certain traits that they have, attached to servant leadership. Like they're more of a caring. They have this more empathetic side as compared to any other leadership behavior, and they're more of serving rather than leading. That is what they say. So they make an effort. They make they are they are approachable to their employees, and there is a soft side. The softer side is more, I would say, is dominant as compared to the hard one. So, but do you think such sort of an approach is viable in today's kind of a business environment?
So, Ania, I don't know what is that soft side. So, okay, I'll come to what I understand and I'll tell you what servant leadership is to me. Soft side doesn't mean aap sabse pyar se baat karo. Okay, it doesn't mean that you are always talking about some polished words and some sweet words all the time. That's not servant leadership at all. What I understand is if you can come early in the morning and greet everybody, from the person who's at the gate to the person who's the last before you walk into your desk, maybe not a cabin, maybe at your desk, that is good enough for you to understand how that person is doing. You don't have to be somebody who's over talking, over smiling. You can be somebody who's just walking normally and just trying to understand if everything is okay at their end. Secondly, when it's work, it's work. When it's goals, it's goals. When it's completion, it's completion. So servant leadership is not about just dictating. It's about when you're having meetings, coming together, brainstorming. If things are not happening, why is it not happening? And not just questioning, but probably asking them, why is that things are not working at their end? If goals are not met, if project deadlines are not coming through, if there is at the end of the day, you're not getting one document out emailed, something is going wrong somewhere, right? Whether it is work-life balance or whether it is sitting at home and just having your coffee, tea, going to sleep and getting up and not being able to email even one document which has your deadlines or your completions, something is wrong. So what is that something wrong? And where can I help you? Where can somebody in the team go back to getting you on track? That may be some aspect of servant leadership where we're trying to say you're putting your priority first, but at the same time, a leader is never somebody who is very polished and very happy. For him, business is business. ठीक है? एक बार वो स्वीटली बात कर सकते हैं, दूसरी बार स्वीटली बात कर सकते हैं, तीसरी बार वो पूछेंगे कि आपसे काम क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? Employees are first safety, their salary, their commitment, dedication, timelines, bringing their leadership early, respect. You don't look down on people because they've not completed work. You still talk with the same communication lines as what is not working, how can we make this work, how can we come together to get this done, how can we reproduce results what you had shown earlier and why are you not showing it now? What is that is not working in a relationship? Are there people who are just bogging on you or you are getting carried on? Something on those same lines where we're trying to listen, foresee, get the commitment, build the community, get empathy. These are all big words, but it is all about conceptualizing everything to a driven goal. The goal of the leader is still there. Okay, he's not shifting from his focus. He's not saying, I'm not going to build that 1 lakh over the month if I'm going to do servant leadership. He's not saying I'm going to be okay with 50,000. Do you get it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my understanding of servant leadership. I think I'll leave it there because there's a lot more. But Patrick and Dr. Shittal can also share their views.
It will have some impact to get work done, like from the people. And do you think that it has
Of
a
course.
scope of doing writing a thesis on it?
Of course.
So may I add to what Raina said to that?
Yes, sir.
So this is very interesting question she has put forward. Somewhere in 80s, Greenwich coined this term called servant leadership. So it's a philosophical approach where he tried to describe that connectivity of a leader should be with respect to the purpose, and he is there to serve whom? Serve a team, serve a customer, serve society, serve organization, serve the planet at large. So even before Greenwich coined this term, we had an understanding of leaders being people-oriented or a task-oriented, and there's a dichotomy that people were followed. But if you look at an example of Nelson Mandela, you know what he did? He spent 20 years of his own life in a small prison. What was that for? Probably that's a classic example of servant leadership where he fought for the nation, he fought for the people. So that came to the organizational application where he, the Greenwich wanted to convey the message that it's not the only profit orientation that you need to look at, you know, the balance sheet at the end of the year. You look at the purpose of the existence and then solve the larger audience which is around you. That's how I would like to respond to her question.
So, Neha, I think Shital has given you the answer. You asked the question, will it affect? It depends on what is your outcome. Do you need money as your outcome? Do you need people? Do you need relationships? Do you need a higher purpose? Do you need to develop a foundation? Do you need people to drive for a particular social cause? If all these things are there, then servant leadership works. It's not only about growing money or a structure or an organization based on cost. Okay, that is what Shital was also trying to do and tell you that if the higher purpose is something else, servant leadership is this. And the most important thing people use servant leadership is only for community building. Please keep it in your mind very clear. When you want a bigger community, when you want to drive a community, when you want more people to join you, when you want people to build trust in you, when they want you to demonstrate courage, you want your value systems to show out and you want to be somebody to influence, then servant leadership works. But in organizations, servant leadership is somewhere there, but not on a whole. Okay, because their end product is always growth, productivity, which is proportional to the amount of cost coming out.
So, ma'am, I guess then it won't be so much useful as a thesis or to do it like in organization context, probably.
No.
It is a very good idea to do that.
Much work has been done on servant leadership. That's number of
I will probably
written
say
on that.
do it. Yes. It will be appreciated very highly. Just probably align it with some area. Maybe we can talk post the session. You can always connect to Dr. Shital also, Patrick also, and me also.
Thank you so much.
Peter will share the numbers. Yeah.
I have to go. I'm so sorry. I need to leave this meeting. I want to thank you all of you for participating.
Thank you,
and Dr. Shital and Rhea and Nitika for facilitating and Peterson.
Thank you. It was a pleasure as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.
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 Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think all over to you, Peter.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Raina, Dr. Shital, and Mr. Patrick for sharing your cognizance on leadership styles. To all those who wish to share and learn, you can also access the recordings of our today's session on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. Before we conclude with our today's session, we would also want to thank all the association members, that is Asia, NASSCOM COE, Talgrow, TLE, LinkedIn Local Ahmedabad and India for supporting the HRAI events. To know more about these associations, request you to kindly visit the link provided in the chat window. Do join us next on the Connecting the Dots session on the topic Gig Workforce and its Sustainability on the 21st of July 2022 at 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Request you all to kindly register for this event at the link mentioned in the chat window. See you soon. Stay safe. Take care and bye for now.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Take care. Thank you so much.
Everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neha. So Neha will be sharing the links and details. Their LinkedIn IDs are shared in the chat window. You can definitely access them. We will have you connected with them. Do share your email ID. You can send in an email ID to team@HRassociationofindia.com. We will have the credentials of the speakers shared with you. Yes, Nia, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the session, Peter. How can I get connect with the experts now?
Yes. What I mentioned is you can send us an email on the email ID that we have shared with you, and we will share their coordinates with you on that email itself, so that you can connect with.
Okay, so shall I just share it right now? I'll do it right now from my email ID, and can you just send the links or the way of connecting with them? It's actually important.
Sure, definitely we'll do that.
All right, fine. I'm just doing it right now.
Sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Shyam. We can hereby conclude with our today's session.
Sure, Peter.